Hello everyone, welcome to Product Chronicles, Product Stories from Jaco. I'm Joca Torres, here to share with you real product stories from Jaco, showcasing how to tackle product management and digital transformation challenges through stories from my over 30-year career helping companies build successful products and the lessons I've learned along the way. In the previous episode, I told you how I started my career in product management in the 1990s. Before the internet was even available in Brazil, I was the technical co-founder of an internet services company. Because of that, I was always concerned about using technology to solve customers' problems while generating results for the company. If you haven't heard it, check it out after this one. In the second episode, I'm going to talk about data. I will show you how knowing how to deal with data is not a fad or a trend, but rather a critical skill for any company and has always been. Shall we? Now that the nervousness of the premiere has passed, welcome to the second episode of Product Chronicles. The idea here is to tell stories. Why stories, you ask? Over time, as I've helped develop product managers and leaders, I've found that concepts, principles, and tools of product management become more evident when illustrated through stories. That's why I created this podcast, focused on sharing product chronicles. Today, we are diving into stories related to data. But first, I want to touch on two important topics. The first topic is, for those who enjoy product stories, you can also check Jaco's blog and my 4 books, which are filled with stories illustrating product concepts, principles, and tools. I've recently launched a new series of articles called TBT, as in Throwback Tuesday, since every Tuesday I revisit my first articles that I wrote more than 15 years ago, bringing back some interesting insights from the past into the present. The second topic is about why I decided to release episodes in English, in addition to Portuguese. As a Brazilian, I noticed that the challenges and concerns in product management are quite similar worldwide. While many understand the operating model of Silicon Valley tech companies, they often find it challenging to implement these models in regular companies. This inspired me to demonstrate through these chronicles how product concepts, principles, and tools can be applied in any company to achieve remarkable results. This motivation aligns with Marty Kagan's purpose for writing his third book on product management entitled Transformed, which showcases how regular companies worldwide have successfully adopted the product operating model. In chapter 27, he highlights Brazil's Gympass, where I served as CPO, as one of the examples. Now, let's delve into the topic of data. The first point to make clear is that every company needs data. Every business has revenue, costs, and margins, which is the difference between revenue and cost. This essential data is crucial for understanding the company's performance and its health. This need for data has existed since the first businesses. Think of old vendors at antique fairs. They sold items and needed to ensure that they received something at least of equal value or ideally more valuable in return. This illustrates the importance of data in assessing a company's health. In my first company, the internet service provider I co-founded in the early 1990s, we constantly tracked revenue and costs. We operated a subscription-based model where people signed up for a monthly subscription to access the internet through our service. We knew our subscriber count, revenue, costs, and profit. Data was essential for understanding the health of our company. In 2005, I joined LocalWeb, the leader in hosting and internet services in Brazil. My mission was to focus on portfolio diversification. As I explained in the previous episode, this was one of the major concerns of Gilberto Maltner, one of the company's founders. Around that time, free hosting providers were starting to appear, generating revenue from ads, which posed a potential threat to LocalWeb's revenue model. Gilberto was worried that our main source of income could eventually disappear. So, my task was to help diversify the product portfolio by creating new products. One of the first products I contributed to was a website builder, followed by a web hosting for resellers, and eventually we introduced Virtual PBX as one of our products. We were already diversifying our product portfolio, and at the same time, I started to look into our numbers to understand their dynamics. I questioned how many customers were joining each month versus the overall growth rate. If we were acquiring 1,000 customers, for instance, in web hosting, but we saw a net growth of 800, what was happening with those remaining 200? Those 200 represented the churn, the number of customers we lost each month. By 2005 and 2006, I started to delve deeper into these numbers dynamics, creating reports to track the amount of new customers per day and per month and identify our monthly churn rate. This data became crucial, forming a basis for understanding our business health. In 2007, I formed a team of product managers at LocalWeb. We were about 4 product people, including myself. I remember Gilberto once saying, I don't want to see anyone messing with numbers. I want to see people launching new products. While launching new products was indeed our main strategy, I emphasized to the team that we should also continue to work on understanding our numbers. Despite his initial concerns, Gilberto recognized the importance of these reports, especially during our first attempt to go public in 2008. Although the IPO didn't happen due to the economic crisis back then, having clarity of our numbers, growth rates, churn, and customer retention was crucial. Gilberto later acknowledged how essential these numbers were for our IPO process. Numbers are vital. They reveal a company's health. Just as metrics like heart rate, cholesterol levels indicate our physical health. Understanding our product's metrics is essential for assessing its health and making informed decisions. Another interesting story related to numbers comes from my time at Conta Azul, a leader provider of ERP for small businesses in Brazil. Each month, we had board meetings with investors, and for these meetings, we prepared a slide deck filled with various metrics. These slides showcase the evolution of product usage, customer engagement, growth by segment, the number of invoices issued, and the total value of these invoices in Brazilian reais. We compiled this information monthly, pulling data from our databases and creating these comprehensive reports. In 2016, the data team, led by Anderson Borges, introduced a tool that was gaining popularity at the time, Metabase. This tool allowed us to visualize and work with data, create reports, and develop dashboards. When someone from the data team demonstrated Metabase to me, I was fascinated by its capabilities. The power it gave us to explore and understand our data was incredible. I remember spending late nights that week, often staying up until 2 or 3 in the morning, enthusiastically creating dashboards. My goal was to automate our monthly board meeting reports so they would be available in real time through the Metabase. It was a thrilling experience, having that level of control and insight into our data. However, having access to data isn't always straightforward. Sometimes the data we need simply doesn't exist. For example, when we started evaluating the productivity of the product development team at LocalWeb, we had no prior data on this aspect. We pondered how to measure productivity by the number of stories completed or by points in each Scrum sprint, even though each team measured points differently. To gather this data, I proposed a simple solution. Every Friday, each and every product manager should email me a list of the week's deliveries. This included anything that went live, whether for external customers or internal functionalities. We started cataloging this information in a spreadsheet, and after a few weeks, we began to see patterns and trends. This data became incredibly valuable, offering insights into the team's productivity and work rhythm. I used a similar approach when I joined Lopes. Each time a deployment was done, the QA leader would send a deployment report via email detailing everything that went into production, classified by new features and bug fixes. I tabulated this data into a spreadsheet, and after a few weeks, we had enough information to analyze. I sat down with our engineering leader, Daniel Hein, and we discussed whether our deployment pace was healthy and if we should do something. At the time, we were doing one large deployment per week containing 15 to 20 items. We decided to break this down into smaller, more frequent deployments. And with the implementation of OKRs, we shifted from one massive deployment per week with several items into each deploy to several small deployments daily, even multiple times a day. We've reached the end of the second episode of Product Chronicles, Product Stories from Jackal, in which we discuss how data is critical to every product and every company. Data gives us knowledge about the health of our product and company. And if we don't have data, we need to figure out a way to get it, even if it's manually. I hope these stories, since I told more than one, has provided insights that can be useful in your journey. In the next episode, I plan to talk about the role of the product leader in the company's funding process and fundraising. So that's the topic we are going to talk about, and I'm going to show you some things I've done through my career, including more recent work with clients that I'm helping. Remember to follow the podcast, share it with your network, and send us your questions through Jackal's social media. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for our next episode of Product Chronicles, Product Stories from Jackal.